Coming up on the Crypto Nightly News, we sit down and chat with President and CTO of Atlas Reality, Beau Button. We'll discuss the future of gaming in Web 3.0 and how Atlas Reality is positioning themselves to help you see America and earn money through the fastest growing online virtual reality game. That's coming up tonight on the Crypto Nightly News.
Let's join that chain gang on the funky train.
We all know the term future of the digital asset compared to last year's survey. Welcome to the Crypto Nightly News with Chris Jerry.
Welcome to the Crypto Nightly News for Sunday, November 6th, 2022. I am your host, Christopher German, broadcasting from a very wet and wild Pacific Northwest on the beach here in Pacific Beach, Washington State. The precipitation around here is measured in feet, not inches, and this weekend we have received more rain than this sailor has seen in a very, very long time, having been sequestered in the deserts of Utah for the last 3 years. Well, the weather be damned, as this week we have been working on a very fascinating story about gaming in the future by chatting with the CTO of Atlas Reality, Beau Button. I tell you, I've been working to get this interview for a very, very long time now, and it was my great luck this week that Mr. Button in fact called me and agreed to sit down and talk about the meteoric growth he has created with his app, Atlas Earth. If you've played a game of Candy Crush lately, you have seen it, and if you've been on YouTube lately, you've seen gamers from all walks of life with criticisms about it, claiming it's a scam and that you have a better chance of getting struck by lightning before hitting it rich in Atlas Earth. But if you're one of the million or so users who have downloaded the app and are currently roaming the American landscape in search of plots to buy and diamonds to collect, well, then you get it. And you're part of an ever-growing trend of gamers who are taking to the metaverse to find fun and money with your cell phone. But we'll unpack all that when we get to our show with the exclusive interview we have with Beau Button of Atlas Earth later in this broadcast. Before we do that, however, I have to remind you, we have some top headlines that we have to share about the cryptoverse and all the goings on this week in DeFi. So let me take this opportunity to remind you that I am not here for any other purpose than to inform and educate you about the advent of this thing we call crypto. And anything I say or do on this show is not intended to be any form of advice or insight into what you should be doing with your hard-earned money. This is for educational and informational purposes only. Let me also take a moment to tip my proverbial hat to the Big Bear, Glacier FM's Artist of the Week, who you hear right now serenading this nightly newscast. For the full playlist, take a look at the description tab of this show, and to hear these tracks played in all their glory, tune into the best damn internet radio station in the world, Glacier FM and Glacier Underground, where you can catch also this show every Sunday night and its rebroadcast every Monday morning. Now, it's Sunday night. I'm on the beach. I do hope you have remembered to change your clocks back and that the time shift isn't causing you too much havoc in your busy life. But just the same, I encourage you to take this time to bring your loved ones near and turn the sound way up so that everyone can hear the good news of cryptocurrency, Web 3.0, and decentralized finance. Pop a bottle of hard cider and toast this autumnal evening while the leaves fall and rustle past and the smell of Sunday dinner is wafting on the chilly breeze. Let us rage against the dying of the light once more as we say sayonara to the setting sun for the next few months and enjoy the splendor of the winter night that will grace us in its place until the first flecks of spring show in the willow branches. And hit that subscribe button to show your support as we will endeavor to continue to provide you with the news you can use this coming winter about all the advent of this crypto revolution that is coming in earnest. So without further ado, it's time for the news. Let's get to it, shall we? While the cold winter winds seem to fill the November sky, the chilly crypto winter seems to be abating. For the second week in a row, I can report that the top 30 crypto coins are up, with Bitcoin hovering around 21,000 and ETH marching confidently to the 2,000 mark. Everyone else in the top 30 posted positive gains on the week, except for gaming-heavy coin Tron, which flirted with their ever-so-slight loss of the 7-day look-back, down some 0.30% as of Friday. The Fed raised interest rates to start this month, causing a dip that erased last week's gains and sent markets running for cover. But by Friday, those gains were recovered and sentiments were high heading into the weekend. In NFT land, the big news for the week was Art Gobblers, who rocketed up to the #1 spot after a meteoric launch on Halloween. NFT collectors saw the collection spike to an astonishing 37,000 ETH, or $59 million in secondary volume in the first 4 days, and briefly surging to a floor price above 20 ETH on November 2nd as buyers piled in. But after heavy selling on Thursday, the floor price dropped 50% to 8.5 ETH, but that put them in the #1 spot, followed by Bored Ape in the #2 spot, followed by Keepers, So Rare, and Art Blocks in the 3, 4, and 5. So Rare was the only top 10 lister who saw a drop in sales, down some 8% to just under 7.5 million in sales. CryptoPunks at 6, Gods Unchained at 7, Other Deed at 8, and Mutant 8 at 9. Newcomer to the list, Utes Mint 2, with 137% sales increases in the #10 spot with 3.6 million in sales. And now, to our main event.
Don't get paid cash with Atlas Earth. Yeah, virtual land all across the globe,
I'm a lazy sack of shit. Alright, so first impressions about just opening this app is, this is basically just Pokemon Go. This is like Pokemon Go with a GPS tracker and people trying to make $1.
And you're wasting all your money to get parcels that you earn like nothing. And if you watch ads, you make more money. Yeah, I mean, it's all a scam. So what you're doing is you watch.
It is a side hobby that is kind of fun to play. It gives you that mental dopamine rush, right? That a lot of people are after, and you can make some money doing it, all right? But at this point, I could not advise anyone to put any real amount of money into the game unless you really believe in the future of the game, because at this point, all the money is just coming from ads. It's really no different than just back in the day when there was phone farms and you'd watch ads on your phone and get paid, and people were having a ton of phones and things like that. Apple doesn't allow that anymore, so there has to be a gamified version of that. This is that gamified version of that, all right?
Yeah.
We are very pleased to have this interview to share with you tonight because, as you have just seen, there are a great many mixed feelings about this app, which you can download and play on both Android and Apple. It boasts over 1 million players and is growing by leaps and bounds to the dissatisfaction of some and the great amusement of countless others. But rather than spout off about conjecture and opinion of what this is all about, we are lucky enough to have the man behind the brand himself, Beau Button, CTO, not CEO as I previously reported, of Atlas Realty. Now, it is a virtual reality company, virtual realty company, but the name, as I was corrected, is Atlas Realty, and it is now taking the nation by storm. So now, without further ado, please, may I introduce to you my interview I shot with the man himself, Beau Button.
Well, then let's dial it back a little bit here, and why don't you give me a brief description of what Atlas Realty is all about?
Yes, sir. So, I mean, at our core, we're a mobile game development company. We started off as a consultancy, building games for other businesses, and then quickly realized that was kind of mind-numbing and not very entertaining. So we pivoted, and because of my background and my partner Sami's kind of like desire to build something similar to Pokemon, we decided to get into the location-based gaming space. So our first game, Atlas Empires, was kind of an amalgamation of Pokemon Go and Clash of Clans. That game was commercially successful, but we were kind of at this fork in the road where do we invest more money and reinventing it and kind of breathing more life into it based on lessons learned, or do we develop a new title based on like what the market is doing right now? And that's really the decision we made. Atlas Empires is still alive and doing well, and we are reinventing it, but we are in the virtual real estate business now with Atlas Earth. So we've been focusing on that.
It's this virtual real estate thing that I think is so fascinating to all of this, is because the metaverse is coming out right now. Web 3.0 is doing its thing. And there's this idea that, all kinds of things are going to be going virtual, and that, the realty world, the real estate, which is your realty, reality, but it's taking on this realm of, like virtualness. And that is, I think, a very fascinating concept to think, you're walking down the street and there could be 4 different layers of ownership on a piece of property, where you have, somebody owns the piece of land you're standing on, but then there's also somebody has a title to it in the court of law. And, there's so many elements to this world. It's really fascinating thing. So tell me, I mean, how is it coming out how's it getting received? What is the general public's idea of all this stuff? Is it what's your demographic? Who are the people you're targeting?
I mean, right now, for us specifically, we're not really targeting the Web3 aficionados or maximalists like our competitors are.
Yeah.
Primarily because the barrier to entry is extremely high. There's a lot of first-time user experience friction that's just unattractive. As a whole, though, virtual real estate is hard to wrap your head around. I think it's a little easier for individuals and gamers and users of our platform to wrap their head around our approach, primarily because we're using Earth. This is not some fictitious app that we can continuously expand. It's a finite resource. And you're absolutely right. Like, my background was in real estate, specifically distressed real estate. Title search, all of that is a nightmare, but you don't have any claim to the real land. And that's really something that some people get caught up on. They're like, well, how am I buying this guy's property in the metaverse, but he owns that property? There's a mortgage. No, there's the complete disconnect between those two. This is where we kind of use the term augmented reality, not in like the classical sense where you're holding your phone up and you're seeing, little goblins in front of you, but we've augmented Earth with a layer that we can then sell virtually. You have no claim to the real land, but the competition is kind of clever because you can then, in virtual reality or augmented reality, buy your neighbor's land. And if they're if they're playing the game, they can also see that you own their land. So there's this kind of friendly competitive game loop that goes back and forth between players in that game. But overall, I mean, our demographic right now is most definitely largely male. I don't know the precise age range, but from my interactions with the community, I'd venture out to say you're 18 to maybe early 30s. Almost everybody is interested in passive income, and we are a game and we pay cash. So the attraction is they want to convert time into money, something that's equitable that they use. And I think Atlas Reality is doing probably the best job at allowing players to do that, between watching advertisements. We have competitions, we have sponsored competitions where players can win things, but we also have, I think, one of the most unique plays in this space, which is our merchant program. We have about 12 deals with nationwide brands where you can go spend real money in their real brick and mortar stores and get rewarded in Atlas Earth, and then you can use those funds to buy more virtual land, etc. That's the area of the business that we're trying to really grow fast. It's not as easy as you'd like to think, or some people would like to think, in front of these big brands. But now that we have traction and we have real historical data, for instance, just in the last 12 months, we've driven a little over $2 million of business to Speedway, which is a gas station, a chain. I think it's now actually owned by 7-Eleven on the East Coast and a few other areas, but we have hard evidence. It's not a guesstimate of how many people we've driven to the gas station that might have purchased, because we have integrations directly with Visa and MasterCard through their loyalty program rails. we give reports to our actual merchants that show how many transactions and the dollar amounts that we've driven to their precise locations. And that's something that none of these other metaverse plays are even touching or talking about. I've got an experience, which I love. Look, I don't want to downplay the importance of 3D experiences and full immersion. I think it's brilliant. But from a brand perspective, like conversions, money, hard money that you use, and that's where we're focusing. So I mean, the reception's been great. We're just north of 1 million users, total installs. DAUs are, I think, in the 50,000-60,000 users. So in comparison to our competitors, I know there's a lot of debate right now about how many users are actively involved in these, kind of metaverse/virtual real estate environments. Relatively low usage, but that's not uncommon for a new emerging technology. So I'm not overly concerned about the viability of our competitors, but I think right now, the market that we're addressing is your standard gamers. We're not really trying to focus on these Web3 maximalists that are interested in token economies and all of that. That's not where we are.
Well, and it's a theme that's going on. Like they're like the third or fourth interview in this series that I've been doing now. And one of the things that's really come out of this is that there's this nexus between Web 2 and Web 3. And there's a bridge that has to be formed in order to really bring the human populace from this world of brick and mortar stores with websites to a world that is entirely virtual. And I kind of see your business as being that nexus between the two as well, because you are so much of a physical presence out there, but you're also doing it virtually as well. So can you talk to me a little bit about, how are you seeing that bridge between the two worlds?
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the heart of our approach. My partner and one of our brand strategists, the way we kind of articulate this is creating this virtuous cycle between the real world and the virtual world. I personally, as a parent, as a technologist, I've been literally doing this for 30 years since I was 9 years old. I don't really want to be part of a future that's completely virtual. I think it's a novelty. I think it is a cool place to escape reality. I think it's got real world, applications for manufacturing, medicine. I've seen some really incredible AR applications that just blow my mind. I'm thinking, well, all right, well, I could see that being useful. But for a consumer and for society, I don't think we're ever going to see like brick and mortars go away in their entire, at least not in my lifetime. Maybe in the future. I don't know. I'm thinking 5-10 years from now, but the goal here is to reward players and not try to change their behavior. That is one of the most difficult things to do from a psychology perspective. And trying to change an end user's behavior, I'm 39 years old. To get me to do anything in VR full time is going to take an act of God. Yeah. It makes me sick. I just sitting in the game. It's nauseating. But we're trying to create more experiences with brands that do tie into their either brick and mortar, or like, for instance, if we were to sign on a movie deal or something where we can incentivize players to go do something in Atlas Earth, but go watch the movie in an AMC theater, not put on your VR goggles and watch the movie in VR from the comfort of your home, which I think is coming. But most of what we're focusing on is going to have a physical anchor. That's something that Sami and I are very passionate about. And it's a relatively easy story to tell to brands, especially now that we have 2 years of data to say, here's where the money is.
Right. Well, let me. I've got you in the hot seat now, and I had an idea back in the day, which I really thought was a cool idea, because I used to travel up and down the Eastern Seaboard all the time, and there's all these. Bob's Big Boy was the biggest thing that used to be on the Eastern Seaboard up about I-95. But there's all these historical places that you could stop, and there's all these signs. And the idea was that if you travel down the road, you could have an app on your phone, which is this pre-phone. I'm that old, but you could have a program on that you could tell you what's coming down the pipe and what happened in that particular historical spot. And it's a way to really engage the mind in a road trip, so to speak. And I kind of see you're already working in that way, especially, with stopping at the speedways and all that kinds of good stuff. But do you have any plans to really engage the users in the historical aspects of where they're at, and, kind of dig into the idea that, we live in this great, big, cool country and there's all these places to see?
Absolutely. Because we are location based, I know when you're playing the game, we obviously have the country, the city, the state. We can even get more granular. We could leverage geofences, which we do now. So when we launched the game, we had earmarked, I believe, a little over 2,000 landmarks with the intent of preserving those for a future auction or something. No educational kind of like side effect, but hey, we want to make sure that the Statue of Liberty, the land underneath it, doesn't get sold like from below it, because we want to sell the Statue of Liberty and the land in the future. But Sami and I and the entire team, quite frankly, have been kind of ideating on how we can leverage this captive audience of folks who are very comfortable with using location-based apps. So you have to share your location. We have to know where you are. We do not resell that data. We only leverage it to basically surface what's around you, the map, and any kind of augmented layers on top of it. But we have had conversations on trying to build out some type of educational play. Like, I remember going through high school and learning all of the different states and the capitals and different things about different areas of the United States and obviously other countries. But in my passion for computers, I've forgotten most of that. It's quite embarrassing. I've got a 15-year-old son, a 12-year-old daughter, and a 10-year-old daughter who probably know all of the capitals. And I'm like, I don't know that anymore. If there's a way for us to partner with, I'm a big, Discovery fan, National Geographic. Like, if there's a way for us to leverage the locality aspect and somehow monetize it. And the key here is, like, the monetization aspect is important to us, obviously, to remain viable as a business. But our model as of today, and quite frankly, for the foreseeable future, is everything that we do that we monetize, we're sharing back with the user. Yeah. So if there's a way for us to present the user with a hyper local, quiz about the local geography, then, great. And then if we, allow them to earn some in-game currency and they can use that, that's even better. But absolutely, there's other areas that we're trying, like, for instance, voting awareness, where you're polling. Like, we have all of these people in this game, and they're incentivized to move around and buy land and compete. But, like, we definitely want to do something more socially good. Watching advertisements, competing with your neighbor, it's fun. It's a game. It's a classical game. But if we can marry those two concepts with, education and entertainment, then I think we have a home run here.
Well, and I definitely agree. I think this is an absolutely fascinating idea that you guys have working here. Tell me about how much of a challenge is the fact that I'm living in the Olympic Peninsula right now. I just came from Utah, which had even worse internet than the Olympic Peninsula does. How much of the challenge is getting this game to work when there's such big holes in this country when it comes to internet and connectivity?
It will be a challenge. There's no skating around that. Any type of persistent connection when you're in rural America is going to be a challenge. I'm optimistic that as the telecommunication infrastructure improves, that it will be less of a concern. But right now, our focus is obviously on the larger markets. I mean, I have family in Carriere and Picayune, Mississippi, where I do have a cellular, signal, and the game works well. But we certainly can't satisfy everybody right now. Right. It is a game that requires a real-time connection. We do need a reliable GPS feed, which generally is not the problem because of the way GPS works and the receivers in the phones. The Achilles heel is indeed going to be that data connection between your device and the cell phone tower. But we're working on ways to reduce the requirements, like how much bandwidth is necessary in order to fully facilitate the game. But I can't say it's the highest priority right now. We need to continue moving forward, and then passively, I'm optimistic that the 5G and any other improvements in that infrastructure space will help us out in the long run. But you're absolutely right. If you're in the middle of the Mojave Desert, chances are you won't be able to buy that land right now unless you have a satellite uplink. Which, bless your heart if you have that.
Well, and I get these updates as soon as I get back from my little forays into the wilderness, and Google always seems to know where I'm at. So, it's happening. It is coming along. It's just not all there yet, so to speak. Hey,
no doubt.
Beau, how do I get people involved in this? What should I tell them? What's the best way for somebody to say, I want to get into Atlas Reality? How should they do so?
Quite honestly, install the game. The game that we're talking about now, the virtual reality, virtual real estate. There's too many R's here.
Yeah.
Real estate reality. But yeah, the easiest way is we are on iOS and Android, so you can go to Google Play or the Apple App Store and just search for Atlas Earth and install the game. The first-time user experience is highly optimized. It's a video introduction by one of our employees, Derek, who we call Mr. Atlas Earth. We get a lot of backlash because he's got this brilliant mustache, these handlebars, but he won't steal your money despite his looks. Get into the game. We give every player one free piece of land, which is roughly 30 by 30 square feet, 30 by 30, 900 square feet. And just, get involved in like the actual gameplay. Like you can spend money, you can watch ads, you can convert time. So if you're a free to play person and you don't have, the extra cash, we absolutely facilitate that gameplay. Quite frankly, that's the gameplay that we want to focus a lot on. You will see some folks come in there that spend, real money. We have an active feed in the game showing you every piece of land that's sold in real time and every badge. You had mentioned the traveling, so much like your real world passport, we have a passport in the game. So as you travel through, right now we're only available in the US. So as you travel through the US, you can buy passports for the cities that you visit, and you can have that as kind of a memento for the future. But yeah, just the barrier to entry is real low. There's no crypto play, there's no Web3 terminologies. You don't need a wallet. Just install the game like you would any other game off the App Store and get involved. And don't be quiet if there's issues, if there's feature suggestions. We're active on Facebook, Twitter. We have a Discord server that's really vibrant. I'm on Discord. I manage the Discord. There's no machine learning, artificial intelligence that's doing sentiment analysis. I am doing the sentiment analysis, so I'm feeding that directly back to the team, letting them know where we need to improve.
Well, then I guess I just have one more question for you, which is, how far are we to being saturated in the markets? I mean, is there still a lot of land out there? This is the virtual land grab is I think reminiscent of 1800s when people were traveling across the United States just trying to stick their flag wherever they could. Where are we at in this process right now?
I don't have the exact percentages, but since we're only available in the US, obviously we've got the remainder of the globe. Now 70% is water, but you can technically, if you have access to a boat, maybe you're on a cruise ship, you can buy that. We don't disallow purchasing water. I don't know ratio wise, but I can tell you this: we've sold a little over 4 million parcels in the United States. And there's something to the tune of 19 billion available on the globe. So saturation right now is not a concern. And quite frankly, I think it won't be for a very long time in our game. Now, in the other games that are also virtual real estate, they've intentionally designed these maps. They're not, mirrored, from Earth. So the scarcity is, higher there, but we've got a long ways to go. We are selling, land at a really quick pace, but that's not an immediate concern of ours.
Well, this is fascinating stuff, and I'm so glad that you came out and you joined me for a conversation on this. I am going to sell this to the world because I think this is such a cool idea, and I think I might even download it myself and join the game. Beau, thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, sir. You have a good day.
All right. And stick around because we're going to be coming back with the takeaway, and we're going to talk all about these wonderful ideas that we've been talking about on the Crypto Nightly News. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this message. I am highly ADHD in my life, which is, in fact, I hated Atari and Nintendo. I contribute all of this stuff to lumiwealth and the amazing education that I have gotten from this service. Well, I can't thank lumiwealth enough for everything that they've done. It's having even a question about whether they should do this. Just look at my story and just look at what I've done.
So finally, would you recommend lumiwealth's classes to someone else?
I'm doing this every damn day. I love lumiwealth. It's amazing. As I mentioned earlier, I worked very hard to get this interview with Mr. Button and was rebuffed roundly by his minions at Atlas Earth multiple times. I could take a very dim view of the game given the massive pushback that exists on YouTube from opinionators and commentators, and how hard it was to get him to sit down and talk, but I'm not going to do that. I think Mr. Button and Atlas Earth are filling a very important function in the advent of Web 3.0 and gaming.
Sure, you won't get rich playing this game, and if people did get rich, I'm pretty sure that the Fed would waylay into all the fun and take all the fun away. But what this game does is celebrate the landscape of our nation while providing a very important nexus to the next generation of web games. They are, if you will, an ambassador to Web 3.0 that is very much needed, especially in this nation where people are so willfully ignorant to what crypto and Web 3 represents. If they can get you to go visit a speedway and make a little money for the small business owners, while at the same time getting people to engage in the metaverse, well, then I say it's a win-win for everyone. I want to thank Mr. Button for joining me on this show and urge all the detractors who want to get rich quick from a video game to do a little reality check. This is a game after all, and while they do offer a little payment for your time in the metaverse, it is ultimately for entertainment and adventure. Before you deride this game as a scam, I ask you to do a little gut check and understand that this isn't supposed to be some sort of gambling venture or get-rich-quick scheme. It's designed to get you to get out there and see the world, while using navigation and the metaverse to aid in your exploration. And that's just about as American as you can get, isn't it? And that's the takeaway for this week. Don't you just hate the day they turn the clocks forward? Never seems to end, does it? Unlike this show that always seems to end too quickly, don't you think? A big thanks goes out to Glacier FM Artist of the Week, The Big Bear, whom you can check out on Glacier FM and Glacier Underground. We have the playlist for this week's show and links to Glacier FM in the description of this show, along with links to our sponsor, lumiwealth, where you can get 15% off by using the code CNN15. We go out on Glacier FM every Sunday at 9 p.m. and stream across the entire podcasting network all week long on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, as well as everywhere else you can download your favorite podcast for free. Check out the video of this show on YouTube and hit that subscribe button while you're there, please. Make sure you tune in next week when we have 2 interviews to share with you. We'll have James Andrews, who is revolutionizing the time it takes to trade crypto with his app Lightning Bridge, and Blockworks writer Byron Gilliam, who posits the question, do we need a few more public executions to get crypto to clean up its act? We'll talk about those stories next week, but for now, all the big news from the land of crypto and each and every week you can get right through this winter. So stay tuned and remember, trade safely, my friends. For the Crypto Nightly News for Sunday, November 6, 2022, I'm your host, Christopher German. Have a blessed Sunday evening and a prosperous week.